I'm gonna bring Charlie Proven's non-alcoholic kind of fun drinky things into the shop. They're really cool.
Oh,
Have you tasted them? You should.
fun.
Bring Charlie's
You know what I saw in
the proxies.
at Pickler a couple years ago or 3 years ago, whatever, was they were selling juice, like Gruner juice.
Oh, see that? I'm not mad at that. That would be super fun.
It was so tasty. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people were doing it. We're live. Hi, everybody.
Have fun.
Yay! Can't believe it's the last week.
No.
It went.
Half of me wants more. Half of me wants like to learn more, and half of me wants to have my but
Well, yeah. Just
soon.
drink more and learn
I've
more.
got so much sake in my house now. It's like that I bought from Stu, that I picked up over the last few weeks. So I feel like looking back, I'm happy to drink sake. I've got more in the shop. I've got more in
Yeah.
the cellar, so it's a win.
And you're doing a tasting in March with different rice.
Yeah, it's like I had to put myself on the line. Everything I've learned, I was like, I have to do something to like get myself over the edge.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's nowhere near gonna be Mariko quality, but
Oh, thank you. No, I have some like rice photos and samples. I think if I can find them, I'll send
that'd be
you.
fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
it was a good, it was a good way to talk about sake.
Yeah. No, with rice, with 4 different rice varieties, that's really cool. Yeah. You need to. It'll. Yeah, it's still hard to like be like this is this rice. Like you can't blind taste sake rice, but it'll give you like a better idea of like texture and depth of flavor and things like that.
Yeah, and just give I feel like I'm either gonna make it more complicated and confusing for people, or I'm gonna it's gonna give them a way of just approaching it or asking one question about sake when they see it to go, well, what's the rice that they used? You know? And
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know,
Become at least part of the conversation.
yeah. I came away from this, this seminar, these sessions, not saying oh, I prefer junmais and I prefer komodo. It's like enjoy sake, all the sakes. I enjoy everything I drink. It's not so a question of having preferences or having a style you like, but more knowing a producer and understanding the everything
Story and
along
like
with
how
the
it's
sake.
made,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly right.
Yeah,
I think that's what I enjoy about once you move past that wine mentality where you're I like this is my favorite grape and this is my favorite region. And it's there's no favorite, you can't just pigeonhole it like that. So.
Yeah. But you start to be able to ask good questions and think about it and wonder why you like it or not like it, Like Doug was saying today that his favorites are usually kimoto sakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it kind of makes sense for someone who tastes a lot of wine and especially Burgundy and champagne and wines like that. No, it's a good,
yeah,
good start, hopefully. So today is all about what's a huge actually section on service or storage service, pairings, and all the temperatures, how which sakes we want to warm and which ones you want to keep cold. And maybe you have, so I bought 2 cans of beer earlier this week to with the hopes that at least 1 can I was going to not drink, and then we can put it into the nigori sake, for example. That didn't happen. So I have no beer to put into my nigori. But anyways, to talk about things like that, fun stuff like that.
I always have beer. Sorry.
It's a good, yeah. Damn it! I knew that if I bought it 2 days before, I probably would just be let's just drink that. That's a good idea, right? Yeah. Well, where is? Oh gosh. Okay. That's weird. Let's see. PowerPoint. Oh, weird. Sorry, I need to get my PowerPoint to open. Downloads. Oh. Gakko, Gakko, day 4. Okay. I panicked there for a second. Sorry. I was like, what happened to my okay, why is it still not coming up? What happened to my oh, there it is. Yay. Okay. I went very cold for a second. Oh my god. What's going on? You know that moment where you're just like, oh shoot. Here we go. So now I can play it. My logo again. Day 4. It's our last day. Okay, so here are some of the things we're going to talk about. Today's agenda, I call it etc. sakes. It's like specialty sakes. You know, all the sakes today are going to be a little kind of in between the lines, and things like nigori, nama, genshu. We don't have a koshu in there or sparkling, but we'll talk about those, and hopefully you'll find them and drink some. Service, you know, how, like, where should you put your sakes into, like vessels, I mean, and what kind of temperatures, storage, pairing concepts, transit direction. It's a lot. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. The slide's on, right?
It's on. You're right.
Thank
You're
you.
on.
Thank you. So specialty styles of sake. This is a photo from a really great sake bar in Tokyo in Ebisu called Gem by Moto. I think I've talked about this before. I'll post the Instagram account later, but Maria-san, it's not her in the photo actually, but she's written a lot of sake books and worked with a lot of kind of intense sakes, like very extreme. This, you can see this nigori. I think it's like a yogurt
Yeah,
sake.
that's thick.
Yeah, it's really creamy. And then the sake on the left is one of Kidoizumi sakes. I work with Kidoizumi, but not this particular cuvee. But this one in the photo is aged in sherry barrels. Yeah,
Oh,
we
cool.
work with the 2 wine barrel aged ones, but not the sherry one yet. Yeah. So the range of expressions of what we can do with sake, or what we're able to put into a bottle, is pretty big now, right? Like before, we were talking about like clean and light sakes, and they're elegant and they taste mellow. Like Japanese people for sake still like to use a lot of very like not direct words. Maybe that's language and culture, of course, as well. But we're starting to see sakes that are like very precise, and like, you know, there's wine sakes that you smell a lot of like Sauvignon Blanc notes on. And I was talking to some researchers, sake researchers, who said that that like gooseberry, tomato viney nose, I can't remember the compound is, but that in sake for the longest time was seen as a pretty big fault.
Horizons.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's considered a fault in the sake world. Usually it has been, but now they're starting to say, well, you know, maybe we don't need to label it as a fault and call it character. Right? So it's yeah, it's changing quite a bit, as we've talked about over the weeks. The first sake style that I want to talk about is nigori. And this one, I'm sure a lot of people have had or have seen, or maybe they've like tried it and didn't like it. But the thing is, nigori, the word nigori just means cloudy. So you can say, you know, you can't say it's a cloudy day by saying it's nigori day. I mean, you can say that because you want to drink nigori that day, but it's more like a cloudy message, or, you know, if you have a clouded mind because you're hungover, so, then you can have something that can be nigori, right? But every sake starts out as cloudy in some way or form with rice particles. Now, most sake is not nigori. Most sake has had the rice solids separated out with some sort of pressing mechanism to make them clear, right? That's why we don't see most sakes that are consumed and we see in Canada even are going to not be nigori. But you can get everything from slightly cloudy to like really thick and chunky and very like cheesy. You know, like cottage cheese is kind of a common expression you hear. So there is like, you're probably going to be pretty full afterwards. So different people have different preferences, and the breweries as well. The photo, this one looks pretty lightly cloudy. So some sakes say usunigori, which means light cloudy. So how is it done? So the slide is talking about, how do we make cloudy sakes, but also more about, I want to talk more about how do we make clear sakes, right? Because that'll explain to you how we make nigori sakes too. So again, like I said, all sake starts out with rice solids, rice particles in the sake, right? That makes sense. We have a mash with rice particles still in there. It doesn't get all fermented to dryness, so we have always some cloudiness. So the pressing methods, depending on what you use, you're going to get different things like the length of time it takes, how efficient it is, what kind of volume you can do with it. This photo is a Yabuta press, and Yabuta is actually just a name of the company, like Kleenex, right? So Yabuta is the main company that makes these horizontal presses, and they are a very large company. But there are others that make machines like this. This is a pretty average size press, but if you go to Brooklyn Kuda, Brooklyn Brewery in New York, Brooklyn, and then they actually have a very small version of Yabuta. I think it's a different company. I think Saseshiki. But yeah, you can buy different sizes now as well. This is considered to be the most efficient, and for most people, this is like what's best, right? So it doesn't mean that we can do a lot of volume, so it's for mass produced sake. You can make really good daiginjos and small batch sakes, and this presses it or separates it really efficiently. Grade doesn't matter. So all sake again starts out as nigori, as one stage to another. So they can be jinmai, they can be ginjo, they can be honjozo, they can be kimoto, any of it, right? It's all nigori. But to be considered legally as seishu, which is the Japanese term for sake in the eyes of the government, you have to filter it to some extent. So unfiltered sake is not a thing. You can have like doburoku, which is just like the straight up mash put into bottle, which actually doesn't get taxed the same because it's not considered seishu. I was talking to a producer in Kyoto, and he said that to get around this rule, they actually dipped a basket into their mash and pulled it up, and they called that filtering or pressing because they, somehow like filtered it to some degree, and they said to the tax office, "Oh, here we filtered it," because they wanted a cloudier, a thicker sake. Yeah. And I like the word press personally a lot more than filter because as we talk about a little later, there's things like charcoal filtering and like membrane filtering that makes it kind of complicated. So press or filter, you can use either, but the whole point here is to separate out the rice solids and stop the fermentation as well, and to make it clear. This the photo on the left is kind of cloudy for some reason, but these are the panels that are in that machine so here's what it looks like put together, assembled, and this lady is just cleaning it because you can see that each of the panels doesn't have a bag, but on this photo on the left you can see the holes. I think I talked about it before, where each of these boards, the outside perimeter is metal, so that keeps it stable. And then in the middle part, they actually put a bag inside that inflates. So each of these slats or these boards acts as a mini filter. So we're not pressing sideways horizontally like this. It's not one big bladder. It's actually like a bunch of these balloons with the sake goes inside and gets pressed against the surface of these boards. Yeah. The photo on the right this is furodori. So this where the sake, the mash are in these bags. They hang these, and by gravity alone, you're getting the filtration. Of course, this method, because some of the rice leaves and like the fine particles get through the cloth bags, you're not going to get a completely clear sake. And actually, Izumi, so one of the sakes we have today is the Toronto Brewery. They don't have a Yabuta machine. I don't think there's very many overseas breweries that have a Yabuta press. The only one I know at this point in North America is the Brooklyn Kuda. I'm sure there's other. Well, of course, we're not talking about like Gekkeikan made in California. They would definitely have a Yabuta press. But the one on the right, In Japan, at least, it's usually this method is reserved for very small batches, which means like competition sake, that Junmai Daiginjos that you want to be really careful with. You do get the most kasu left over, so you don't get as much sake with this, right? Because you're so like gently pressing it. I made soy milk the other day, which I feel like is not the most efficient way to consume soy milk, because I don't think I'm going to do it anymore. But when you make milk or almond milk or any of those things, you after you cook it, or you like pulse it, you would put it into bags and press like this. So kind of the same concept. Yeah. So Izumi does this. Also, the two breweries in Vancouver use this method, as well as putting it into a wooden boat like the one on the left. So the guy on the left, that's Yamagata Masamune's old wooden press. And then you can see behind the guy is a newer press, and it's made out of metal, whereas the one that he's working on right now is like over 100 years old. So the Yamagata Masamune sakes, for most of their sakes, there's some, not sediment, but it's not like so finely pressed that you do see some cloudiness, especially in their like nigoris. Yeah. So the photo on the right is finished sake, right? So that's kind of how it starts before you put it into any three or other ways of pressing. But these are the three ways. I can't think of any other. Oh, I know. Dasai uses a centrifugal thing, centrifugal, like machine to spin it. Yeah, and that's how they separate their sake. Yeah, these are the main methods. So now how we get nigori is that we're gonna either finely or coarsely filter it, or you could also put some sake kasu back into the clear sake as well. So you can adjust that, because you might want some more of like the finer particles that have been broken down, or some people might want the chunkier rice bits still in the sake. So depending on what you want, you're going to adjust and make that happen. This is supposed to be a video, which did not get saved. Okay. Another thing that I want to address is press fractions. So after as we're pressing, different parts of the press, the sake, the liquid, have different names. So this arabashiri that we're going to drink today, later in the tasting, that is the first run, like the free run, right? So without any sort of pressure, just on gravity alone, we've got this part. Now with yabuta presses, it's pretty hard to get the arabashiri. You can, but you probably wouldn't separate it. Whereas with the bag method, then you can get the free run. And so this Izumi sake we're drinking today is the first run, and it's going to be really big and juicy and a little like less fine grained. It'll be a little like thicker, right? And then of course this particular sake is genshu, so it's no water added, and it's also nama. So there's a lot going on with that sake. But if we come back to the press fractions, then we have the middle, which is the nakadori. Oh, I wrote noka. Nakadori, naka means middle. So it's the middle. Dori toru means to take. Nakagumi is to scoop up. So the middle is the naka. Okay. And then the end, which is called seme, is often not used because it's going to be the roughest, kind of more less elegant part of the sake. But if we press into a tank like this in the photo, then the seme might not be used, but the beginning and the middle are going to be blended in the tank together. But the arabashiri, if you choose to separate that out and kind of sell it on its own or call it on its own, again, you're going to get juicy, like rougher, bigger flavor profile. And the middle is usually the most purest part. This kind of reminds me of like basket presses for champagne. You would have the first run, you'd have the middle, and the end you wouldn't use, right? So kind of a similar process there. Sake kasu, I'm sure people, hopefully you've seen some sort of sake kasu in your lifetime. So the word kasu itself translates to garbage. So if you want to insult someone and say you're garbage, you can call them kasu. Yeah. So don't say that. Yeah. Don't make note of that. You don't need to use it. I'm sure you're not calling anyone garbage. But so kasu is it means garbage, and sake kasu of course means the sake sake garbage, I guess, like the leftovers, right? But the thing is, it can be used for a lot of different things, and it has been for hundreds of years. As long as we've had sake, we've had sake kasu, right? So it can be used for marinating, making cows happy. So I've heard like Wagyu cows get sake kasu in their diet, so that it makes them really happy and like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe not anymore, but Izumi was doing that with some of their sake kasu. They were giving it or selling it to a farm in Ontario for their cows. Yeah, there's a lot of nutrients in there, of course, some sake as well. So yeah, it'd be a pretty decadent meal, I'd say. Yeah. How much sake kasu you get though is different probably every year, actually, different rice as well. And so I remember there was a time when I was like really hung up on knowing how much kasu came out of each tank. So it's this thing called kasu bua, yeah, because that's who I am at breweries.
We all have done that. Where
I bet, right? Yeah, you've all. I've been there.
This weird fact about beverage, like wine or something, and you're like,
Oh, true. Okay, I feel better now. It's true. Like you get hung up on some technical point, right? Yeah. So
like I keep asking, you start asking people like winemakers about rootstock, and you're like, this doesn't mean anything.
Right. And like, what does that mean actually for the wine? And, maybe I don't need to know anymore. So buai means ratio. So if you recall, seinmai buai, right? The rice polish ratio also has that word buai in there. So kasu buai is the amount of kasu that you get to your sake. So for some sakes or some breweries or some rice or vintages, it can be as high as like 50% or more. So I remember going to a brewery one year, and they said it's like 50% this batch in this year. And he said, well, we're practically making kasu. We're not making sake. We're producing, we're sake producers, which is quite funny. But this number is kind of not arbitrary, but it's really, it's really hard to put into context, I think is what it is. So this photo you can see the specks of rice in there. This is a yabute machine, right? You wouldn't get flat sheets of sake kasu unless you use a yabute machine that gives you these flat pressed kasu, the rice bits. And you can see the little rice bits in there because it hasn't fermented, like it hasn't dissolved all the way through, right? So if you have a rice here like 17 where it was a little harder, and like if we're talking about Yamada Nishiki, for example, that rice in 17 was a little harder and it didn't dissolve as much. So your kasabuai also naturally went up. Even if you try to adapt your koji making so that you have more rice dissolving because your koji is stronger, you would probably still have more kasu than you normally might get, right? So it really isn't that important of a number. You can use it and like take it out of context completely. So specific rice, also like gohyakumangoku rice, right? That rice is known to be harder, and so you get cleaner, lighter sakes. Also, that means that they're probably not making that sake for that gohyakumangoku rice to dissolve all the way through. Because if it dissolved all the way through, you would get too much flavor. So many things come into play when we're talking about kasu buai. But it's really fascinating to at least see what the kasu looks like, so you can kind of get you can make a guess as to how well the rice melts, or what they've done this year versus last year, right? So with the texture of the sake kasu changes. The photo on the left here, this is now like not itakasu, not the sheets, but this is like the mash, right? So they probably used a bag of some sort in this example on the left. So it's quite moist. And then on the right, it's pickled, I think it's like a type of cucumber on the right that they've used sake kasu for. So like I was saying, you can make kasujiru, which is like a soup made out of sake kasu. You can marinate your fish. I saw recently you can do like half kasu, half miso, mix that up, and then you marinate tofu, like firm tofu with that. And after a week or so, you've got like a really intense, like almost cheesy texture and flavor So you can make like tofu cheese that way.
Izumi for kasu?
Yep. Yeah. You can get sake kasu from Izumi for sure. Yeah. I think they're one of the only places in Vancouver. I've seen some food distributors bring in some from Japan, but we have a brewery here, so it's great that you can go and just buy it. Yeah, you can. I've done a lot of sake dinners where the last course, like the dessert, has sake kasu in it. And I'm yet to have a really delicious version of sake kasu ice cream. I'm sure it can be done. Like in Japan, I think it's the kasu is fresher too, right?
You're saying that you've had a lot of kasu ice cream.
I've had a lot of sake kasu ice cream, yeah, actually. Yeah, it's very true. I've had a lot of it. Okay. Leo says that he saw some sake kasu at Sanko.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so you can maybe get it there too. Cool. Okay. Pasteurization. This is another big topic that we can get super technical about, but I want to cover it in a broader way and what that means for the sake. So pasteurization, the goal with pasteurizing is to stop spoilage, to make it more stable, to make it transportable, right? And also we want to stop things like the yeast, the koji enzymes from being active in your sake. I might be stepping on a mine here, but it's kind of like, if you use a little bit of sulfur at bottling, it'll probably make it transfer or transport better, right? But yeah, or filtering with wine too, the same thing. But we want to stop microbial activity so that we don't get spoilage. So the photo in the slide here, that's of a namazake that came straight from the press, and they let us taste it, which, by the way, in Japan is illegal. So they're always like, don't take photos of it, don't, or at least don't publish it. It's funny because the tax office makes you record every single drop of sake that you produce. So if you drink it, you can't report it. So it's like tax evasion. But how we pasteurize is with heat, right? So there's different ways you can do that. I showed some photos, I think in maybe week 2, where someone was using like a canned fish machine, fish canning machine, right? They put the whole like batch of canned fish usually in there, and it pasteurizes. But a sake brewery decided to try to use that. And then I also showed Izumi, where they put the bottles of sake in hot water, right? Let it go up to 65 degrees, and that's how they bottle pasteurize. So there's various ways. Right now, the most flex-worthy way of pasteurizing sake is with a machine called a pasteurizer. Not very fancy name, but it's a shower. So it goes through a machine where there's different zones of temperatures, and the sake bottles get showered with different temperatures of water. And at 65 degrees, that's when sake is pasteurized and it gets cooled down. So various methods, whether you're putting it into a water bath, or you're using a pasteurizer, or you're using like heat transfer. There's the whole point is we need to get the sake to 65 degrees, and in order to keep the sake as fresh as possible, even after pasteurizing, we want to cool it down. So cooling it down as fast as we can is like really the key. So if you're blanching, spinach, for example, if we can put it in ice water, it'll stop the color from like turning brown, right? So that's kind of what we're doing with pasteurizing sake. Now, when we pasteurize, it's usually twice. So most sake, the majority of sake is pasteurized twice. That is by volume. So the big sakes, also like more table sakes, those are definitely most often pasteurized twice. When you see the word nama, then you should most likely assume that it means completely unpasteurized, not even once, right? And nama means raw. So if you want to say nama raw meat, nama niku so it just means raw. It's like cheese again. If you have it unpasteurized, it's going to be pretty intense and big, but also means that it's less stable, right? So nowadays, a lot of sakes, especially like the more juicy, expressive ones, are pasteurized just once instead of twice. Yeah. So pasteurizing, you get stability, you get consistency, but you do also, of course, lose a lot of things in the process. Some of those things you want to lose maybe, but some of those things you want to keep, especially if you're going for bigger flavors. Yeah. Namazakes are juicy, they're big, they're roughly textured. And this pasteurization by heat with heat is a completely different thing from filtering, right? So when we talk about filtering, I think in like 2 slides from now, we're talking about using charcoal, membrane filters. We're talking about like racking as well. But this and pasteurization, they're 2 different things completely. Yeah. Yeah. Namazakis are not pasteurized at all usually, and they are seasonal, typically. So you can get namazakis in Toronto. We're really lucky all year round because we have Izumi around, where you can go to the brewery, or I think sometimes their namazakis are at the LCBO for the like specialty stores. But if you go to Japan, namazakis are usually in the springtime. So it's kind of like a rosé sort of style, where it's kind of like Beaujolais Nouveau, you want it fresh, you want it like only at that time. And you're not like cellaring that. And then we talk about other finishing techniques. The one I was saying before about charcoal. Charcoal filtering, this photo here is a picture of like spent charcoal. So this is charcoal powder gets added into your sake tank. And when they press that sake, you get things attached to the charcoal that you want it to pick up. So it's kind of like erasing. If you take a little eraser app on your iPad or something, you can kind of take out certain things and clean it up. That's what's happening. So if you use different sizes of charcoal, which of course we can't see, but if you use different sizes of charcoal and look under a microscope, they have little divots and holes, and that picks up certain things. So you can pick up some aroma, some flavor, color as well. And if you go really aggressive, of course, you can take away a lot and erase a lot. But you can also do it very gently, and just a little bit goes a long way. And you take away a little bit the roughness maybe, and clean it up a little bit. There's a couple photos later for more filtering stuff. So roka means filtering, but if they say muroka, which means no filtering, it doesn't necessarily, they're not talking about membrane, or they're not talking about other ways of filtering. They're usually just talking about charcoal. And more, charcoal is not happening as much. If they are, it's very little. And most of the premium or like craft breweries don't use any at all. Adding water. So if water is not added to a sake, it's called genshu, which means like original sake. And the sake from Izumi tonight is genshu, so it's 17.5% alcohol. And but that's what they like declare. But on the website, it says that it'll change pretty often. So each batch, we got batch number 196. This one, they were saying probably closer to 18%. So pretty high, right? Pretty strong. But adding water usually is done to make sake more palatable or more balanced, right? And usually we're getting to like 13 to 15% alcohol, even though the genshu might have been at like 17, 18%. It's kind of high, but you bring it down a little bit. You also line the texture and kind of, you thin it out a little bit, right? And whether we're talking about cocktails or spirits or coffee, or sake, a little bit of dilution opens up the sake, opens things up. Like you can taste more. Like, I'm not very good at tasting spirits, but if I do, then I definitely need to add something to it, to water to open it up. Yeah. But right now, one of the big trends or things that people are doing is low alcohol genshu. So you're not adding any water, so you're not fixing anything, you're not altering anything, but you have a sake that's 13%, right? So it finishes at 13%. So that could be a couple of things. You can either stop the fermentation by pressing it, right? So you don't have any of the yeast and koji active anymore. You can also just like bring down the temperature a lot to stop the fermentation from going. And then even between these methods, you can also do something along the lines of adding water during the fermentation. So you're not watering it down at the end, but you're adding some water at the beginning or in throughout, so that your alcohol finishes at where you want it to be. Yeah. So when you stop the fermentation, or sometimes it ends up being kind of watery, not watery, but like not done. The flavors aren't, fully developed yet. Whereas if you adjust the water throughout, the understanding right now is that they're going to be more harmonious, and like it's kind of like pre blending water with whiskey. Like in Japan, you can go to a bar and the shochu vessel at the front of the restaurant is like water and shochu already mixed. Yeah, so you can drink it straight from there. Other things that you can do to finish your sake, things like sparkling, infusions, these things, when we add anything after the filtration or the pressing, that makes it not seishu. So if you want to call it seishu, we're not adding these things, but you can certainly not call it a seishu and do these as product choice. Aging, we'll talk more about later. This is Mayuko-san from Kirakusho, so she makes the sake here. I was saying how she's, I think she's the 6th generation, and she's quite young. She came to visit a couple of years ago, and I asked her to bring some charcoal with her on her trip to do this. Because what I find fascinating about her is that right now, when there's all these like juicy, expressive, like more floral wine-like sakes, her brewery in Shiga, which we've talked about, like, the Noto fishermen and farmers coming to Shiga to make sake. That's why their sakes are sweeter. She has insisted, and her father too, that they keep their style, right? They're not kind of going towards the direction of like juicy and aromatic and bright acidity. So theirs is much more savory, and the sakes have lined up for sure over the years, but it's still very like Noto Toji style. And so they use charcoal really well. Like she's really good at it, where she knows which ones to use for which sakes, and not too much, not too little. But you can see in these bags here is charcoal powder, and this is one of her sakes. It's a finished sake. So we took this sake. She took a little what's it called, toothpick, and sprinkled like the tiniest amount of charcoal into the sake. And she did another glass where she did a tiny bit more, and we waited until it settled and tasted the sake afterwards. And it's a huge difference. It just like lines it up, it cleans it up. And yeah, you can do this with, I bought some activated charcoal on Amazon and did the exact same thing. And it's not perfect, but it's quite similar to what she was able to show us. Yeah. So, wow, a fun thing to do is if you either like Izumi's Genshu, or you had a sake, Naminoto, that was a Genshu too. So that sake is Genshu, but it's also no charcoal filter has been done to it, right? So it's the perfect sake. It's like in a raw form, and then you add a little bit of charcoal, and you can see how much like the color is different, and then the palete's different, and it cleans it up a lot. Yeah, so cool. We should do a science experiment. The wine coach. Okay. Some trends. This Masumi sparkling. I know, Nick, you have at Peter Pan, and I'm sure a lot of people have had it. Bathurst has it too, but this is Metropolitan brings it in. And this is a sparkling sake that Masumi has had for a few years. This like bottling and this product in itself has evolved over the years, and I've seen it in different kind of styles. At first they had like a vintage version. I'm not sure if they still have that, and this is kind of like their pet nat. They were saying, right? Style, yeah. But you can make a sparkling sake in kind of 3 main ways, and you can do like champagne method. That should be in like quotation mark, champagne method. You can also carbonate it, which is the vast majority of sparkling sakes. And then you have sakes like this. This is kind of pet nat, where you're not adding anything to it. There's a sparkling sake association now, the Awazake association, that has standardized some of the rules around making sparkling sake and like what ingredients you can use. So they're really trying to put some research and like value into sparkling sake. because it was such a proliferate um, category where they weren't very good. Like I have to say that, like last time I was a judge at IWC in London, the sparkling sake categories where everyone was like groaning because first of all, like it's at the end of the day or end of the competition, but also they weren't usually very good. And it's only recent that like Masumi or even like Nagai Brewery makes a champagne method. It's called the Pure. There's some good ones, but some of the challenges are like the texture, the quality of the bubbles. Like you can't judge it the same way that you judge like the bubbles in sparkling wine, right? They're just very different. And then we also just have a natural lack of acidity that sake has versus champagne or other sparkling wines. That that's why sparkling wine is usually quite refreshing. But Masumi is really like balanced and has good bright acidity. So that's really nice. Aging, I separated aging and vintage declaration on purpose. So aging, when we talked about aged sake, koshu, or the characters there, is for old sake. So if you see koshu, not koshu, because by the way, koshu with the U, like on the accent on the U, is a grape, is a table grape that they use for making wine in Japan, the koshu grape. A koshu, aged sake or old sake, they're calling it, is anything over a year is technically called koshu. But the thing is, so koshus usually taste like dried fruit. They have caramelization. They look kind of like Oloroso-esque. And they usually kind of taste along those lines of very like intense, a little bit sweeter as well. But this is a very specific thing compared to vintage declaration, where we're talking about rice vintage. We're also talking about aging in bottle versus tank. There's a lot of things that come with aging sake. The way it's aged, whether it's in a tank or in a smaller vessel, or in a refrigerated container or in a freezer, these things all really change the trajectory of what that sake is going to taste like. Okay? There is also now a koshu group that they're trying to promote and also increase awareness of koshu because they're beautiful. The best koshus are super delicious and just so balanced, and they can, you can have them with cheese and all sorts of things. But for the most part, a lot of people misunderstand it. So yeah, there's a few in the market in Ontario. There are some really great ones, but it's still a very difficult category, of course, and they're very expensive. One of the reasons why koshu is now exciting is because they stopped taxing breweries on what sake they made. So before, they used to tax breweries on the sakes that they made, not what they sold, which means that if you didn't sell it, you were already paying tax, right? So there was very few reasons to keep it back. The vintage declaration, we're talking about the vintage of the rice, and then we have to compare that to BY, which is brew year, right? So brew year is kind of like a very confusing mix of fiscal year and like the Japanese emperor involved. So brew year, July 1st to June 30th, that's one brew year, that's one cycle. So right now, even though we're already February 2021, we're in brew year 20. Okay, so all the sakes that we're drinking now most likely are going to be BY 19. And those BY 19 could have been made in March of 2020, but we're still talking about BY 19. Yeah. Not all sakes need to have the BY on it, so it makes it even more confusing when we're talking about abroad. Drinking sake abroad. Yeah. Okay. This is my fridge a few months back.
Oh,
You should look something along these lines, right? There's very little room for much else besides bottles, but yeah, we make it work. It's kind of like an avalanche. If I move one bottle, like just a little bit, everything else will kind of crash. So yeah, it's very difficult. So storage and service is what I want to talk about next. The ideal conditions for for sake. And a big question. I did a seminar last week for the emperor's birthday, and like the big thing that everyone kept asking was, how do you warm sake, and how long can you keep bottles for? Right. And so I want to address both those things today. How long can we keep bottles, and then how long can we keep open bottles, are two different things altogether. And I want to talk about them a little separately. Okay. So storage, this is a sake fridge at my favorite sushi restaurant in Hakko, where when I go visit my grandmother. So the owner here, she's her husband is the chef, sushi chef, and she's the manager and like dessert maker, I think, as well as the sake sommelier. And she was like runner up in the Japanese blind tasting competition, and she has like some things that you would never see even in Tokyo. So it's very cool. So this fridge, you can see that it's obviously it's a fridge, but it's dark, right? Like she's turned off the lights on purpose because the UV lights in a fridge are not good for the sake. So the best sake retail shops in Japan, they don't look very hospitable because all the lights are turned off. And sometimes they'll go as far as wrapping all the sake bottles in newspaper so that it doesn't see any light. But same thing as wine, like there's colors of bottles that are better than others. So clear bottles, of course, are not great, but apparently even more bad for the sake than clear bottles is like frosted light blue. For some reason, they allow more light in. Yeah. So yeah, we want a cool, dark place. We want to keep the sakes upright. They don't have corks, so there's no reason to put them on its side. I don't think they'll leak, but I mean, there's no reason to keep them on their side. And most sakes, while closed, are made to be drunk within the first 12 months, right? That's the vast majority of sake. Now, when we talk about sakes that are designed to be aged, then we're talking about a very different thing. So that's a separate thing. Some of the things that can happen with keeping sake, namahine. So nama sakes can turn quicker, of course, because there's things like enzymes and proteins that are still active in there, and that's why we pasteurize, right? If we pasteurize, we can stop namahine usually from happening, but it smells kind of like a wet rag. Sometimes there's various faults that you can get with that. Oxidation is a big one, that kind of caramelization and like dustiness you get, light damage as well. Some of the changes can be positive depending on who you are and what your palate's kind of accustomed to. So someone likes to age izumi sakes in his basement at all sorts of temperatures and appreciates some of the what like sake scientists would call namahine. So even though it's a fault, he thinks that's interesting, right?
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it really depends on where you place the needle, whether you like that or you don't like it. That's kind of, for everything, I guess. And different styles of sake will have different levels of evolution. The bigger bottles also don't, if you open a bigger bottle and you have more surface area, of course, it's going to be worse. Like the sake bags that you made, Nick, they have very little air. So that's why they've been so fresh and so clean. Yeah. So the one thing you can do is after you open a big Ishobin 1.8 bottle, you could put it into a smaller bottle to reduce the amount of surface area that you get. But the other thing I wanted to say about change being positive is that a lot of the sakes, there are quite a few sakes that are bottled extremely fresh and also really almost tight. So by opening it, and I'll talk about decanting later, but even by just opening the cap and then putting it back on and putting it in the fridge for a day or a week or whatever, it can also open up. Like Matsumoto sakes, I think are kind of tight at the beginning, and they open up really nicely. And I've even heard her, the owner of this restaurant, say that she opened something and then she's letting it evolve because she wants it to open up more.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So how long can we keep these bottles for? Open bottles, again, depends on the sake is the answer for a lot of things in sake. But a week to months, it depends on the sake itself, right? So a delicate sake, ginjos, daiginjos, are going to be quicker to evolve. And I think more importantly than the evolution is that the evolution itself is that you're going to notice it more. There's because the sake the rice has been polished a lot. There's less, like there's very little umami or what else? Umami and like richness in there. When that like pretty aromatic pear, lychee, those notes change or they're gone, you're going to notice that much more because there's less to hide behind, Whereas we have richer, thicker sakes like Junmai's and Yamahai's and Kimoto's aged sake, and they're richer, they're thicker, they have more acidity because you've polished less, you have more proteins, you have more acids as well. They can become more oxidative, but maybe that's okay because that's part of the flavor profile. But yeah, you need to know the sake before you start aging it. Yeah. Decanting is really fun. I even like a tight daiginjo, that's really crisp, can really benefit from decanting a little bit. I did a sake dinner in Vancouver with my friend Roger, who is a som at a Hawksworth restaurant. And he decanted some kokuyu sakes for us at different temperatures in front of the president of the brewery. And they changed so much that it was really fun. And kokuyu sakes are really lean. And do you remember, what did we have a sake from like the West Coast? Fukui. Anyways, it's a very clean, lean sake. And you wouldn't think that it needed decanting, but it really changed quite a bit and for the better. Yeah. Reductive. So some sakes are bottled reductively, and by seeing a little bit of air, they oxidize just a little bit enough that you're getting more flavors and personality out of it.
Cool.
Yeah. Unopened bottles, again, depends on the sake. Most sake is not designed to age, but you can play around with this concept as well. Maybe you have a sake cellar or a sake fridge. Ernest, my boss, likes to brag about how right he was about having a sake fridge with lots of bottles in there. And again, it depends on the design of the sake. These bottles in the photo, 1976, 96, 2000, 2006. This is all koshu, and you can see the various degrees of the color. And a sake that you want to age like this, most likely isn't polished very much, right? If you take down a sake to 50% or like even less, you're going to have less flavor precursors. So even though you age it, it's going to age really slowly, which can happen. Like the Kirakucho, Mayuko-san's brewery, way before her time, the last Toji made some daiginjo polished at 35%, aged for like 15 years. That's possible, but you have, if you imagine that, it's going to be a very clean daiginjo to start off with, that's aged and like oxidized at low temperatures for 20 plus years. Versus this sake in the photo is, I think, 70% polished. So you have more proteins and umami and acid left. So that's going to evolve in a very different way. Someone had a question. Is there a link for that sparkling sake association? I will find it. It's Awazake Association. Yeah. Okay. Serving temperatures. Yeah, this was a really popular question last week. I wonder if it was because it was for Ottawa and it was really cold over there. So which sakes do you want to warm? The most safe sakes to warm are going to be the bigger styles, like Kimoto, Junmai's, Yamahai's as well, and also things like Nama and Genshu, because they have so much richness and body, they can hold up on their own even when they're warm. So probably better to know like what happens to a sake so that we can kind of work backwards from there. But what happens when you warm a sake, and I'm talking about like 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, not 80, 90. I've heard that some of those machines, like the automatic machines, some restaurants set it to be like 80, 90 degrees Celsius, and that's pretty hot. Yeah. And if you remember, the pasteurization temperature of sake is 65 degrees, right? So you're pasteurizing it again, which makes it like lose flavor again. So I wouldn't go that high usually. If it's a nama sake that hasn't been pasteurized, if you go up to 65, you're pasteurizing it once. So that could be fun. But if it's already a kind of a more elegant or more kind of mass-produced sake, going over 65 is just going to make it taste less. Like you're just going to get less of everything else, right? So you get more sweetness that's going to come through, more umami, more richness. It softens some things, and it also will bring out maybe a little bit of booziness depending on how hot you go. And the texture changes too, where if it's cold or if it's chilled, of course, that sake is going to be a little leaner and tighter, right? So if like the same thing as if you get a warm red wine because they kept it on top of the fridge, then it's going to be like not very together, right? Like all the elements are kind of all over the place. So by chilling it a little bit, it comes together. And that's kind of the same way of thinking for sake for me, where I go, okay, I think this one needs to come together a little more. I want to sharpen it, then I'll chill it more. But if it's a bigger, richer sake, then you can warm it. But because we're going to get more sweetness and more umami, we need a sake that also has acidity. Because if it doesn't have acidity, it's going to just be sweet, right? So now, what kinds of sakes have acidity? It's usually the jinmais, kimotos, yamahais, and less of the ginjos, right? So ginjo, daiginjo, they're polished, and we have more fruity, sweeter, more simple flavors. So if you warm that, you just get more sweetness. Now you can have a jinmai ginjo that also has a lot of acidity. Maybe it's a kimoto ginjo, and that'll be nice, I think. I've also experienced namazakes that are like fresh and they're still almost like a little spritzy, get warmed up pretty hot, and then some of that juiciness comes alive even more. So it's really depending on the sake, but yeah, in general, the bigger styles, jinmais, kimotos, yamahais, genshu, nama, those can be warmed up and stay away from the ginjos and daiginjos. Honjozos are kind of this anomaly where honjozos, they're added alcohol, right? But they're going to be more like sessionable, lighter, and usually cheaper sakes. And that's why a lot of times people used to say to warm honjozos, because you can, like, that sake is pretty strong. It can take a little bit of like beating up, if you will. Yeah. But actually honjozos, especially these days, the best ones are quite clean and like aromatic and sharp. And I think if you warm those, they actually taste like boozier. You need a honjozo that has some richness as well. You can't just do it with like a thin one. Yeah. So how you can use a fancy sake warmer. I have this vessel that is from Kokuryu. You put warm or hot water in it, and then you put sake in here, do this, and you've got your like table side sake warmer. But the reality is that, you know, any hot water bath is going to do. You just use a pot. The other day we put this like metal flask into our coffee kettle and warmed it up that way. Yeah, so you can use anything. It's just hot water, right? You're warming something up. But I wouldn't put the bottle directly in personally, unless you're going to drink the whole thing at that time. Put it into some sort of decanter is just easier. You can do one glass at a time too. Microwaves, I wouldn't do it. I don't think, yeah, I don't think it's a good way to go. You can't control microwaves very well. And yeah, just stay away from it unless you're in some sort of sake emergency. Then I won't judge, but yeah, I probably will. Yeah.
Superheated liquid. Yeah, that's
yeah. Oh, you can use what are those called? Immersion heaters, like
sous
vide machines. Yeah. Use that, right?
That's a good idea.
When we talk about now, I want to talk about sake pairings. But what makes sake special? You know, this is a kind of a big question. But what we get in sake is a complex fermentation. We've talked about parallel fermentation, where we're making sugars from starch at the same time we're making alcohol with those available sugars, right? So this complex fermentation is really unique to sake. and it allows the alcohol to get as high as it does, right? At 19-20% alcohol, usually wine yeast would definitely die from the alcohol that is produced. Whereas sake, because it's so gradual and bit by bit, we're able to get this higher alcohol and complex fermentation. And some of the acids that we get, malic acid, which in Japanese, malic acid is called ringo-san, means apple acid. So it's that tartness that you get, right? Lactic acid, the creaminess. You can get some citric acid. It's very low if you use regular sake koji, but if you use shochu koji, like white koji, then you can get more citric acid. So yeah, we can do all sorts of things now. I don't think I mapped it out in this kind of way before, so I wanted to just show this conversion again. So at the bottom we have the what sake goes through, the multiple parallel fermentation, and we have sake, rice, the starch, the sugar to alcohol, right, at the same time. This kind of makes it look like it's in like one at a time, but these two functions or these two processes happen at the same time. Some of the things that I love doing and talking about are really about experimentation and using all sorts of things around the house. I typically drink sake in a wine glass, like when I taste it, and then usually Sean has to be like, "Hey, can we use ochokos tonight?" Because it's culturally and it looks really nice. Yeah.
You say no, and you get your wine glasses.
Yeah, no, I only use Zaltos like Nick. Only fancy ones. The culture of ochokos, these small cups, we have different forms of pottery and like glazing and art forms all over Japan. So if you are in the north versus the south, they look very different, right? So like bizenyaki, for example, is a type of is a form of ceramic making that only is in Bizen, which is where Omachi is from, Okayama Prefecture, and they don't glaze. So you've got this very raw surface, which this actually on the very right is a bizenyaki. So you don't get a glaze surface. So it's almost like just about the earth, they say. And when you put sake into a ceramic like this, some of the pores on the surface apparently pick up things in the sake, and that's why the sake is often said to be like smoother. Yeah, so I've done events where we do like the same sake in the wine glass and in ochoko, and they are obviously quite different, right? That's why Riedel manages to sell so many different types of wine glasses, and other companies too, of course. So this culture of using small cups, you pour for each other, so that the other person's cup is never empty. So if you're with people, with friends or family or bosses or whatever, then you just keep on pouring for each other. But they aren't necessarily the best for tasting, in my opinion. You can't swirl, you can't put your nose in it. And the sakes that we are talking about today are extreme, not just today, but like in this era, there's just so expressive, and so they can be really tart to like really umami and rich that you can't get the full range of flavors from these small glasses. Yeah. So if you're tasting or drinking, that's a two different thing, right? Like if you're at home and drinking and having manishi, then yeah, like ochokos are great, and maybe it feels more like contextually, better. But it really depends on what your goal is. So ochoko are these small cups. If you go to Sakai Bar, he lets you, choose from a big wooden board all the different ochokos that he's collected over the years, right? And you choose. I think Miku does the same thing too. So they present you this like, looks like a jewelry box, and you pick which one you want to use. I always just pick the biggest one, because that's always the way to go. That's the right answer. And they can be, so all different types of like ceramic, glazing, glass, metal. There's like a huge range of them, especially now, and different sizes as well. Yeah. So whatever one feels right to you, you can use. Tokuri, this is a word for decanter, basically. So in Japan, Still, it's getting more, it's changing, but for the most part, sake is served not by the bottle, but in tokuri, so in decanters. So if you ask for one go, then you ask for 180 ml, and it arrives in something like this, or other vessels, right? Playing around with temperatures is really fun. You should try using a thermometer. If you want to do it just with your nose and like taste it, that's fine too. But a thermometer helps to control things, of course. You don't need to just warm it once. You can also warm it once and then put it into ice, like the decanter, so it shocks it, right? So thinking back again about pasteurization, if you go up to 50 degrees, you're not quite pasteurizing it, but you're getting pretty close. And then you ice it right away, you're going to get a different acidity than just letting it warm up and then cool down naturally. Yeah. I've also heard people say that you can gradually, so you go, you warm it to 40, cool it, let that go up to like 50, cool it again. Sounds like a ton of work, but it would be, yeah, sounds very Japanese. Over ice, right? So some bigger, thicker sakes. I know a few brewers who can't drink very much, and they have their sakes over ice. If you're having a glass of white wine on the patio, some people ask for ice as well, right? It kind of dilutes it a little bit and chills it down more. Adding flavors, some people think it sounds kind of sacrilegious, but this is in a lot of sake magazines. So if anyone says, "What are you doing?" you can say that I told you that. It's in magazines, yeah, in Japan, so it's okay. Things like adding black pepper. I love sancho, that like Szechuan peppercorn, but the Japanese version is a little more green and herbaceous, but Szechuan peppercorns would be lovely too. Cinnamon, if you warm a richer, bigger sake, so that it's a little sweeter and a little thicker. And then you add a little splash of, not a splash, but like a sprinkle of cinnamon or nutmeg. It would be a little bit like apple cidery, and you get that like edge of the cinnamon and nutmeg that cuts through the sweetness of that sake. Yeah. Sparkling water, bitters, beer, tea. I drank my beer, so I can't do it, but you can do different things. Infusions with tea or coffee. There's a process of making iced coffee called like the Japanese Dutch something, where it's like a drip process, right? And it's over ice, I think. So it's like flash chilling it. I've seen also people warming sake and making coffee or tea in that kind of process.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yamahai and chartreuse. So Tengma Yamahai, put it in the fridge to make it really cold, and a little couple drops of chartreuse is, you have to like chartreuse, of course, but Yamahai has that like earthy richness, especially the Tengma one that's been aged. You get a lot of savory saltiness, and that with a little bit of chartreuse is quite nice. Some more vessels on the right. This is, I know there's a specific word for this kind of glaze, but can't think of it. But it's really beautiful. I like this shape. Yeah. So this counts as tokuri. Yeah, kind of lacquer. I think it wasn't wood, but it's yeah. This is really pretty. It looks almost like a duck head. Yeah. So this is another tokuri, but it's called katakuchi. Yeah, this style of the top being open like this kind of looks like a gravy boat. Yeah, this works too. And then this is at Genbai-moto. This is Aramasa sake, one of the most difficult to get sakes. And this is the bar in Ebisu that I was talking about. She uses a lot of different vessels, and this is one of her sake glasses for this very aromatic style with a lot of acidity.
Genbai-moto, okay. Write that down.
Yeah, Genbai-moto is really fun. And she uses like the most kind of intense, weird is not the right word. It's like, extreme sake. So sakes that have a lot of acidity, like more citric acid, and then maybe like that super cloudy sake photo in the beginning. And some of these sakes are so extreme that they have like faults. They're usually considered faults, but she takes them and kind of plays with it as if it was like another ingredient. So I'll show some pairings later, but she uses her background in chemical biology, I think, to really analyze and dissect these pairings. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Rachel, so how do you quantify acidity in sake? Same as wine. Is there a kind of sake that is a good example of high acid sake? Yeah, well, that's a good question. So sake acidity naturally is definitely much lower than wine. So if we use the grid in terms of like WSET, for example, for tasting acidity in sake, we also obviously have to calibrate, right? So medium plus acidity in wine would be extremely hard to get in sake. So we're shifting the scale there. But the numbers that you see sometimes sake bottles say acidity 1.2, and it's not the same as wine acidity. So it's not the total acidity. So I wouldn't use that number. I still don't quite understand, but usually most sake acid numbers are like between 1.2 to 1.5. Yeah, and it's not, to me, super helpful to see that number ever. But an example of a high acid sake in Toronto, what's a good high? Well, okay, the absolute, the one that Nick, you had the other day.
Yeah,
Kido Izumi.
I was high acid.
Yeah, yeah, super right. So yeah, Kido Izumi sake is they use high temperature Yamahai. Right, so high temperature, no lactic acid added. That would any of their sakes really are pretty high acid, especially the Afsu AFS. And I guess Nick, you're getting not the Afsu yet because we don't have it, but some of their other sakes. So yeah, Rachel, you should go to work, Peter Pan, and then you'll see it. Yeah. Another example. What's a good example of high acid? Yeah, that's hard. White anything that uses a white koji would be a good one to have to think about that. Yeah, good question. So some food pairing concepts. There are things that we can, of course, use from wine that we can carry over. So things like complementary flavors. You know, if we have like a melon and prosciutto appetizer, and you pair that with a sake that has ginjo notes that have melon, you know, then that's pretty easy to kind of go, okay, that should work out. If you have like grilled piece of fish with some fruit salsa, again, same thing. You can use some kind of fruitier styles of sake. Contrasting opposites, maybe things like, oh, this dish is missing this, I'm going to use sake to kind of fill the hole. So Maria-san at Genbai Moto, she uses this concept a lot where she draws like shapes, and she says, this flavor or this dish is missing this right now. So I'm going to use this super high acid sake or this very rich umami sake to fill the hole, to make it more complete, you know. Yeah, considerations. Acid and salt are usually pretty good to pair with. You don't go too wrong with like basically potato chips, let's say, right, in the sake. And acid too, whether it's like pickles or lemon and oysters. I do like just the oysters on their own, but if you do add a little bit of lemon, then that with the sake, with all the umami, the glutamic acid in the oyster, as well as in the sake, and the acid of the lemon will go together usually. Sweet and spicy are often difficult. Like I'm sure we've all done like dessert pairings and being like, oh, that wine didn't have enough acidity, enough sweetness for that dessert. So it is quite hard. Spicy is also difficult, but I really like nigori with spicy. For example, tonight I had Vietnamese food, and I ordered these chicken wings from a new place, but it came with coconut rice. So it was like quite sweet, like really creamy coconut flavored rice. And I thought that with like the nigori that we have tonight, with some like sparkling water or like a little splash of beer and a crack of black pepper would be really nice. Yeah. So you can use it almost like a cocktail base where you're adding things to it. I wouldn't use too many ingredients personally, but you can play with some of the flavors we've talked about. Other things to think about: intensity. Sake intensity is, at least in comparison to wine, is not going to be as intense. But even within sake, there's levels of intensity of acid, sweetness, umami, the nose, how intensely aromatic it is. those things all we want to think about, the length and the complexity. So sake number 2 for tonight is the Sohomare Kimoto, and that one is a blend of 3 vintages. And he did that to make that really like whole complex balance of flavors. Yeah, this is both are from Genbaimoto and Ibisu, and she's saying all sorts of things, like talks all over the world, even on the internet now. And with the photo on the left is kind of the pairing that made her really famous, and she uses it a lot in examples and books. But hamukatsu, so this is deep fried, not tonkatsu, but ham. So it's like really thick ham. And I saw it.
The cheese in the middle?
Yeah, there's cheese in it. Yeah, oh yeah. So like thick ham, because it was cheaper than using pork cutlets, right, back in the day. So thick ham, cheese, and then it's breaded, fried. And instead of using a sauce, she likes to use this nigori, and this nigori happens to be nama, and I think also white koji, so it's like bright and juicy, and not to dip it, but like to mix it in your mouth is her thing. Yeah. But that's like in place of a dip, she says to drink this, right? And then the photo on the right is
I'm in my belly right now.
Yeah, that would be really fun. Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, we should be like, hey, Shori, do you want to make a hamukatsu? I think he has actually done that before. But different cheese inside, like blue cheese inside, or, you know, something more intense. It also will be fun to play with. And then the photo on the right is a strawberry salad. So shirae is where you take tofu and making it into like a dressing, and you mix it with often like different vegetables. But this one she's done with strawberries. By the way, she's not the one cooking, but she tells her chef what she wants. So yeah, like, I want to eat something like this. Can you make it for me?
Exactly how you want it.
Yeah, she has a sake comic book actually about, you know, what she's done over the years, and yeah, she makes herself sound very bossy. Yeah. So yeah, so strawberry tofu dressing, and then pretty sure this one is shungiku, so it's like dandelion stems, which are quite bitter, but it pulls everything together. The creamy tofu sauce pulls everything together, but you've got like the juicy, very nice Japanese strawberries in there, so you can pair that with like a daiginjo or something quite aromatic. Yeah, or a namazake that has that like rawness, you know. More fruit pairings, other things to think about: style. So whether it's a ginjo or non-ginjo style, so whether it's that aromatic, fruity style or not. Junmai versus non-junmai, if it has alcohol added or not. Junmais have, again, more richness, more acidity usually, whereas the added alcohol ones are more lifted. They're more like a little thinner, but more on that kind of top end of the taste profile. But I really like honjozos, like very light, crisp honjozos with Dijon mustard and things that are pickled. Yeah. Again, acidity, we have all sorts of different acidities to work with, which wine, it's hard to find glutamic acid or umami in wine for the most part. So it is really fun to play with. Over the years, we've had different pairing menus from like Psalms and different pairing restaurants say, hey, we need a dish, we need a sake, because it's really hard to pair with like uni and soy sauce and dashi with wine, you know. Sherry, champagne, and sake, probably.
That's my motto.
Hmm?
They're not trying hard enough. That's their problem.
I'm okay with them reaching up to sake, so I'll take it. Yeah, but sherry and champagne and sake, I think, are really like the hidden, beverages that you can do these things with. Historically, of course, food from each region was consumed with sake from that area. It just was, it's originality, but it's also like limitation, right? You weren't having things from another part of the country at the south of Japan. Seasoning, so we were saying if you go north to south, as you get more down, if you get more south, the seasoning gets sweeter, richer. Yeah, heavier usually for the most part. We also have the movement of people. We've used that example of the Noto style being popular in Shiga because the people who went to work in Shiga in the winter were from Noto. Now we can eat anything anywhere. You can be in Tokyo and be at a French restaurant, or get ingredients from all over the world, right? In fact, I think in Japan there's more like French pastry chefs having an outpost there than any other country in the world. So you can eat a lot of great things within Japan, not just expensive too. So sakes have also changed, as we keep saying. What used to be celebrated was these kind of lighter, very subdued, elegant sakes, and now we're talking about things with citric acid and making some really funky, interesting things. And as Maria-san likes to do very much, she's really good at it. She is able to pinpoint the chemical compounds in the sakes and really think through why that with something else works, right? And if you've read Taste Buds and Molecules, or there's other people who've written books on this, there's chemistry and science behind why some things work and others don't. This is my bento box on the train, I think. It's anago. It's like freshwater eel.
I recognize that, like, it's like foam kind of box that they use in the Asians, where it's like, it's not really solid, but it's not like super flimsy either. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can, it's going to be thrown away, but it looks pretty good, right? This is definitely Ekiben. Like this is, definitely on the Shinkansen, right? We're talking about different parts of Japan, the train stations having different bento boxes. There's like little clams also cooked in soy sauce and mirin here. I think in this photo, I actually had a beer. And I took that one out. And a lot of people drink beer at sushi restaurants, at least at the beginning, and it's quite horrible to have with sushi. It's like, did I say this before? It's like licking monkey bars. Could I have the name of the book? Taste Buds and Molecules, or the Maria-san's books?
Genbai did. I think that's what he.
Oh, okay, yeah, Genbai Moto Molecules. Yeah, Taste Buds and Molecules. Taste Buds and Molecules. It's Francois Chartier, who's a Quebecois.
I read that book. It's really good.
Right? Yeah.
It's like written in the early 2000s, and it seemed really bad. Like like the graphic layout is really horrible. Like
it is. Yeah, the design of it is pretty bad and outdated now. I have to admit that I read like a lot of it, but not the whole thing.
But I was like amazed by the pairing and how he did it, and it's so useful, absolutely useful.
Yeah, and he consulted for El Bulli for like a number of years, right? So yeah, yes, the Francois Times Chartier. No, Tanaka. Yeah, I had a bottle the other day. It was very good.
There you go.
Okay. What did I say the part of the shirae was? Oh, white part. Oh, the white part, Nancy, was just the shirae. And then it was strawberries and shungiku. Shungiku, the dandelion stems. Doug, is sake paired with beef in Hokkaido? Asking because the A5 I had from there was always the best. It's a very fancy question. Beef and Hokkaido. Hokkaido people like to eat seafood. I'm sure they eat beef. I know, like, I do, but also like lamb was a huge thing. I don't think that many people are eating like nice beef all the time. And Hokkaido sakes for the most part were always like really clean, light, not very interesting sakes. So it was for like fishermen to drink a lot of. That's kind of like the regionality of it. So now we're starting to see some smaller craft breweries in Hokkaido, but no one was really pairing like regional sake in Hokkaido with their food. Yeah, it's only now there's a new brewery in called Kamikaze Taisetsu that we just started working with that does some really juicy sakes that I had at Jacob's a little while ago. Well, a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, more photos from Jem, clearly. Yeah, so again, this is a close-up of that photo from before. That Nigori sake is extremely thick, but it's very yogurty. I think that was like in the product name. So lots of lactic acid, that like refreshing drinking yogurt, like not Yoplait, but something along those lines. Yeah. And then we have Jikon on the picture on the right. This is a much more classic environment, and it's a sushi restaurant with this tuna that's zuke, so it's marinated in a sweeter soy. Yeah, and the tokubetsu junmai from Jikon, which is really aromatic.
I miss restaurants so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we'll access it.
Soon we'll be able to go. Yeah. So this like took from a presentation I did on lasagna, and a presentation last week, right? Emperor's birthday. So big meaty flavors with tomato sauce, bechamel, and cheese. Let's say that's your lasagna recipe. I would use a big earthy junmai or something with a lot of intensity. The photo in the middle is a paella that Celia taught us how to make on Zoom.
Great.
Yeah, and like Nancy and a few of us made. So this, I've never had. Well, no, I've never made proper paella before, but with the fish broth, apparently don't put chorizo in it if you're authentic. But I used all these mussels and shrimp, and I think something like a really crisp ginjo style of sake. If you imagine like Sauvignon Blanc or like Albarino or something like that would be a fun pairing. And then you can also kind of go the opposite, where you want maybe more richness and more umami. So you've got like kimoto yamahais that you can use too. Unagi with sancho. I keep thinking about making like a nigori drink with maybe again with like over ice and a little splash of sparkling water. Maybe adding sancho to that as well, and having it with unagi. Yeah. And adding beer to nigori, a brewer taught me, so it's not bad. You can do it.
I'm gonna do it. Tasty. I got Sancho at home. I've got Sancho in the pantry.
Yeah, right. It is super fun, and sake will keep in the fridge for or a cool place for a lot of time, longer than you would think. So you can play with it. Maybe at the beginning it's really crisp and clean, and you drink it like that. And then the second half you add like a little bit of lemon because you want it to like liven up again, or you can add all these different things to it. Yeah. And maybe the last bit you warm up over in your pot of warm water. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that sake changing or evolving is um, a bad thing, right? Like you can enjoy it in different forms over the course of a week or 2 weeks or however long you don't finish your bottle. What's the best type of beer to use? I would use a really clean, light beer like Sapporo or Asahi or something along those lines, like a German Asian lager style. Or maybe your nigori is not that like it's a more kind of neutral nigori. Then maybe you can use like a pale ale or like even like a fruitier raspberry beer or radler or something would be nice too. Yeah.
Sake bomb, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a sake bomb. Yeah, kind of, I guess. Okay, so
I remember. I have a very bad memory of drinking all the sake bombs and having it.
I had a sake bomb in New York for the first time, like pretty recently, and I don't know if I regret it or not. But yeah, I don't need to do it again, at least. Yeah. Okay, so if you want to go get your sake, I keep clicking that, sorry. We're going to start with Tatenakawa, the sake number 1. I'll be right back.
I'm going to get some Sancho.
Black rice with sake. So I think everyone got their sakes this week, which is great. And hopefully you got last week's that you drank over the weekend. Which will of these will be warmed? I will. The second one, Norm. So Sohomare is the one that you can warm, and the third one too. But let's do warm the second one if you have the ability to warm it. Yeah. What's that? Oh, it's beer. Good job. What beer do you have?
I don't have any clean thing a lot. It's oh god, Nickelbrook's dry hop, Citra dry hop sour.
Ooh, I think that'd be pretty tasty in sake too.
It's actually delicious. 4.4% alcohol. That's great.
Huh. Because Nickelbrook, oh yeah, no, I like Nickelbrook. Yeah, that's not what I was thinking. But what's the brewery on Geary that, like not Burdock, other one?
Blood Brothers. Blood Brothers?
Yeah, Blood Brothers. Yeah, theirs are pretty like big. So yeah, sake number 2 and 3, Norm, you can try them warmed. And you know why is Nigori always in a transparent bottle? Because they want you to see it. Like they want you to see how cloudy it is, and you know you don't open it and go, oh, it's cloudy.
I realized I didn't have Sancho. I couldn't find it, but I have sashimi.
You have what?
Sashimi.
Sashimi. Oh yeah, that'd be fun too. Can we put the pouch directly in warm water? I don't see why not, but maybe put it into something else. Yeah, maybe not, huh? Okay.
Pretty good. I think the paper would go weird. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not risk it. You should put it into something else before you warm it. Yeah. So this first sake is not like a specialty style. This is a Jinmai Daiginjo, pretty classic, so. And this is also East number 14. When I'm looking for this kind of style, Tatenokawa is the first to come to mind. Is this very juicy, very Daiginjo, like you can't mess it up. Yeah, and this is the bottle you're holding, Tatenyan. So apparently there is a real cat that lives at this brewery, and they modeled it after her. I think it's a her. They have other less cartoony labels. In fact, they are quite a serious brewery from Yamagata Prefecture.
This label isn't on their website. Well, I learned. So probably for that reason, because they're a serious brewery.
It wasn't. Yeah, they did like a limited series with like Tatenyan number 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing, and Yuko collected them all because she's a huge cat person.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's really juicy. And again, they do have other labels that are not cats, and nothing wrong with this label. But if you don't see the cat on it, it's still their sake.
Got like a little cat feel. Like the little cat has a little like his own little paw seal.
Oh yeah, that's cute. Yeah,
very cute.
They're the brewery that did the Phoenix lineup because the band Phoenix really loves their sake, so they made some sakes with them. Yeah, they do some really cool, fun stuff. This is a Junmai Daiginjo, really clean, quite bright. Ace number 14 is a very aromatic-y, so you get a lot of that kind of like melon, apple, pineapple-y note to it. And it's 50% polished. So this is a style of sake that I would pair with like some at the beginning of a meal, or maybe you need a little palate cleanser. Maybe you have like seafood or oysters, same thing. Yeah, that sort of kind of pairing, or that strawberry salad with the tofu, the shirae. I think this would be nice as well to pair with that. For this session, I put the prices as well as who represents them. So this is from the LCBO, but not vintages. It's destinations. So it's at the 2 stores one's in Markham, the other in Scarborough, and the agent's Ozawa. These guys make a sake that's polished to 18% as well, and yeah, they make a huge range.
Are those destination LTBOs really good? Like, is it worth? Because if you go to the Australian one, it's rubbish. So
is it? Yeah.
Like there's Austrian wine on the shelves. So and the Germany one was also rubbish in
Kitchener
Waterloo. But is it, in your opinion, a good place to find some fun sake?
Yeah, I found some cool things, even things for this class there for sure. There's a little bit of like a buying stop. I think it's an LCBO wide thing where they're not allowed to buy as much, and the whole destinations program, you have to go through the same tender process as vintages now. So there's less stuff coming through. There's still like, you can get like, what was it? We had Tidorigawa Yamahai, or yeah, Yamahai last week, I think, and that one you can buy it there. It's worth going, but there are some limitations now, and it's not as interesting as it could be or and once was.
And maybe hopefully someone opens a sake like retail store. Like, why not? Like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, it's literally only a matter of time until someone opens a specialty sake store attached to a restaurant and
Right?
just
Yeah.
sells sake.
Yeah. It's true. Like it's about time, where we can get sake in one place and like
Yeah,
does shipping and delivery. Yeah.
this is great. I'm excited for this. Everything.
Very juicy. But you get that little like a lot of ginjos and daiginjos. You know that like shampoo. I don't mean it as a bad way at all, but like um tropical shampoo smell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that sort of combination of tropicalness. Yeah. So tasty. It's very like easy. It's not like it's not cerebral. You can crush that pretty easily. Yeah. It's a
It's
great price also for a daiginjo. Yeah. So this, you can see that if you warm this, there's there's a little bit of acidity, especially because it's the first sake. We're probably feeling it more, but it's not. There's not much acidity. There's very little like um, umami or other acids. So if you warm it, you're just going to get like boozy sharpness. So this is why this one you want to keep. I put a wine glass thing in there because I think wine glass is probably the best way to drink this. The next sake is Sohomare Tokubetsu Junmai. This I am super biased, but because I like went to try to convince the brewer to work with us years ago on this. I fell in love with it when I had it in a tasting in New York, I think, where I brought a bottle back maybe, and I begged them to to work with us. It is a junmai, tokubetsu junmai, and it's kimoto. So no lactic acid is added, and it's also a blend of three vintages. They don't tell you that on the bottle. I'm sorry, but I just have to read about it, I guess. This is Yamada Nishiki rice. We talked about the king of sake rice. Oh yeah, so this is omachi rice, which was kind of interesting to me because I thought it would be Yamada Nishiki or like Dewa San, but apparently it's omachi, which has that structure, right? And that like um, power and energy. So that's a nice combination of elements there. So this is Yamada Nishiki, and it probably smells and tastes more thicker than the last sake, which is omachi. But this is the aging as well as the blending gives it this complexity. Little bit of like lacticness again from the kimoto, and this is one that I would warm to maybe like 45, 50 degrees Celsius. And even in your hands or like if you leave it for a little bit, it'll warm up and just like really open up. It's not like a loud sake. It's extremely like delicate. No, not delicate. I don't mean delicate like daiginjo delicate. It's very
it's subtle.
nuanced.
It's
Yeah,
subtle.
it's subtle. Yeah, it's subtle and nuanced. But if you compare to the first one, the acidity on this is like quite a bit more on the sides.
Oh, this is so delicious.
And it's 60%, so it could be called a ginjo, but again, it's not a ginjo style, so they're not calling it that. Their Junmai Ginjo Kimoto is more like fruity. But yeah, there's so much like creamy lacticness. It's the lactic fermentation that does this, and the blend of three vintages. The reason why he does that is because he wants to build those layers of flavor, right? And different
Length is
vintages
so
has
long
like
and so good.
yeah, it goes forever, and it's there's fruitiness, but it's not that like really kind of primary apple, pear, those kinds of notes in there. Yeah. This is not a LCBO. It's that's Life. So it's I work with them, and it's around $50, give or take. Yeah, and it's cases of 12. I love this in like warmer temperatures paired with things like root vegetables, like artichokes, or oh no, I'm thinking sunchokes, like braised daikon and things like that.
Wow, so
Is anyone trying it warmed? Is Norm? Let me know if you actually warm it and how it tastes. Yeah, the one in Markham. Yeah, looks like the one in Markham. The one in Scarborough is like more organized looking, but the Markham store, Philip there has like he brings in the most amounts of stuff, and I think he's.
I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna go to Markham. I'm gonna go to Scarborough. People need to tell me what Japanese restaurants to go to, because all I've been seeing over the last 2 months is amazing Japanese restaurants in these areas making amazing food. So please,
there's some good ones up there.
Where I should be.
You should definitely go to Zen. I think they're open for lunch, and they have like they have a udon restaurant now too, so that's good. Yeah. Oh yeah, you go to Omomo as well. If the body comes out, I'm glad. So you warm it, and that richness and texture changes. It's all of a sudden fatter, but because there's a lot of acidity, like lactic acid, mostly, you get that balance, even though it warms up and fattens up. Okay.
This is fun.
Yeah, I didn't bring the spittoon, so it's day 4. I'm just drinking out of those. Oop, there goes the cap.
Let's celebrate. It's the last.
Yeah. For now. So sake 3 is Izumi's. Yeah, so the photo is the little one, 375.
Yeah, the bottle seems a little smaller.
Yeah. They bottled this for us, which was really nice of them, into 1.5 liters. So it's and it's batch number 196, which was pressed the first week of February. 17.5, but the brewer and Kosuke-san, and they said it's probably higher than 17.5.
Do they make it in 750s?
Usually, so yeah, 375 and 750s. Yeah.
This is not an important question.
Yeah, they make it in all sizes.
This is absolutely me asking questions whether I can stock this in my life.
No, you can't.
This is not what people are tuned to.
This is my favorite Izumi though, because it's the juiciest, and to be able to experience different batches like this is pretty cool, and it's because we have a brewery here, and it's not as like huge as I thought, so that's good. There's a lot of things going on. So arabashiri, this is the first part of the pressing, the press fraction, right? So the free run, it's where because they use bags, it's just starting to trickle, and they collect that and put this into the arabashiri. It's genshu, so no water added. It's nama, it's unpasteurized. What else can I say about it? Yeah, and I believe this is California rice. It's Cal Rose.
It drinks really well. Like, it doesn't feel 17.5. And my only previous experience of Izumi was mulled sake when I went to the Christmas markets.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I got to taste this, because this is, I'm definitely going to reach out to them and try and put them in the shop, because I can put it in the fridge. It's fine.
Yeah.
This is super delicious.
And if you can get like, monthly shipments of different batches, that'd be really fun. So every time we visit you, you can be like, oh, you have this batch now, Stu said he's got some like, I don't know, batch like 160 or something like that. That's aging still. But this is batch number 196. So 196 batch they've ever done. I think so. They're about 7 years old now. I need to fact check that. But this is 196. So much acidity and juiciness. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't taste like it's almost 18%.
Nope.
So if you warm this now, so if okay, first of all, if you make this even colder, like really, really cold, I don't know what people have it at, it'll be leaner, right? And because the alcohol is higher, when you make it really cold, the texture will change. Whereas when you warm it up, it'll be like sweeter, juicier. It is a pretty sweet sake. The acidity is there, but the sugar is definitely there too. Um, so if you warm it, you're gonna get that richness and sweetness, but I think there's enough acidity personally to still stand up
It was
if
wonderful.
you form it. Yeah, so good. Their other products are great too, but this is really my favorite. And it's like, why not this one? You know, they also do that the yuzu colon. Is that right? Yeah. So it's like ready to go. You can take it to the park or beach or wherever you go, movie theater or something, wherever, home.
Movie theater.
Yeah.
Things that don't exist anymore. I love it.
Yeah, all the things that we can dream about. Baseball games.
I was
This,
and honestly, like, from a retail perspective, like, I was worried that this wouldn't hold up, and like this wouldn't be as good as Japanese sake, and there's a big, I don't know, distrust for like local wine, local like sake, and I was worried that would be the same. But excited for this.
I think, yeah, I think it's really they've entered competitions and they've done well, and there's a reason for that. I think, yeah. It's also something that I would put over ice if you wanted like a big rock glass. Rock ice would be nice.
It's great.
And then the last sake we have is the Tozai Jimai Nigori. I would probably shake this a little bit before you drink it because most likely it would have separated a little bit. Yeah.
I shook them all. I shook every bottle before I opened it.
Oh, okay. So that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Of loop and sake.
This sake is the Tozai Jinmai Nigori. It's also called the Snow Maiden. You can see there. Apparently, there is a 226-year-old koi fish in Japan. I'm not sure if it's like urban legend or true story, but it's named after this very, very old koi fish.
I'm putting beer in it.
I think with some like crushed fruit would be nice too. Did you try it with a beer or on its own?
No, I had both. The beer's really good. It kind of lightens it up because you get a bit. I mean, especially with the sour, you're getting a lot of acidity, but you're also getting carbonation, and it kind of just like
yeah, exactly. Right.
It all together.
This is a 70% Jinmai. And again, remember, nigoris can be anything, right? It can be a ginja, it can be a daiginja, it can be kimoto, any of those things. But this is a 70% Jinmai. And it looks pretty like smooth, not just that it's cloudy, but the particles are quite smooth. So I feel like they've like pushed it through some sort of mesh, broken down the rice so that when we get it in the glass or cup, it's pretty consistent. Yeah. So this is Kyoto. It's a brewery called Kizakura, a pretty large producer. I think they're in like the top 5 production volume in Japan. They make really tasty, like accessible, value-driven sakes. Yeah, this is $24.95 at the LCBO. I think it's a general list, or I think it's a general listing.
I think it is. I remember literally buying this wine, buying this sake at an LCBO. So I think it's pretty accessible.
Yeah, that's nice because nigoris are really hard to distribute. We know they need to be really seasonal. And this, pretty sure it's pasteurized twice so that it's very stable, and so that's why you can really play around with it. It's not the most like juicy or high acid or but you can do things with it. So like I was saying, I had like a coconut rice dish tonight as part of my dinner, and that I think would be good with this. Oh, maybe like beer and a squeeze of lime. But what's that like? It's a more floral lime. Like a key lime or something along the lines would be nice. Yuzu, strawberry, pepper. So yeah, I put a pepper.
I'm gonna do the pepper, okay?
The shimi? Yeah.
And beer? Pepper and beer?
Yeah, why not? That sounds like a michelada kind of,
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Just me drink. I mean, this could be just a giant prank. Mariko's pulling on me.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Together.
Yeah.
Okay. You can see the.
You see me?
You can see. Oh, you can't see anything. But you can see the weird.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. I mean, it's delicious.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you use the fruit, then it's, probably pretty safe, foolproof, right?
Like, you get the pepper on the nose, but like, everything looks delicious.
Oh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, strawberry and pepper would be nice, I think. Pineapple, not with nigori, but at the regular, Sean did this thing last summer with Devin, who is a cook. They did, they like took out some of the water in watermelons by using, what is that, like a vacuum sealer? So they took out some of the water and then put it in a bag with sake. Not with nigori, but with like what was it? Just a regular like easy jinmai, and then added some like chrysanthemum tea leaves into one. Another one was like whole peppercorns. And it's like this boozy watermelon snack. Just tasty.
Yeah, we're gonna do. I mean, again, we're gonna do freezies in summer, Peter Pan, and I think this sake one would be really fun to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like with lots of flavors, but also like a bit of booze and like. I mean, you can do gin, or you could do vodka. You could do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, why not do something? I mean, the alcohol's there. Why not, like, try something new?
Yeah, it's I think there's so much you can do with that. And it could be a little bit lower alcohol, or you can add. I've heard bartenders say that sake and gin is like the most natural pairing for them if you're going to mix the two. If you want more alcohol in it, yeah. But so much you can do. Doug was saying, is it better to buy from Asians for freshness or from vintages? Unfortunately, it's like a complex answer. Depends on the sake and depends on the listing. I think what I saw at the Markham and Scarborough store a couple weeks ago looked pretty fresh. They've rotated through what they had. There was a time when it wasn't that way. Maybe like mid last year, but now it looks really all very good. Some agents, there's very few agencies with consignment for sake, so that's another thing too. But yeah, Nippon Sake, for example, they do not have anything at products destinations. It's straight from the importer. So I will send a list of what we've had and who they're from and the prices later. So yeah, it depends on the sake. If it's at like LCBO, like this one, I would probably just get it from the store. Yeah. Okay. Ah, congrats.
Hey.
They were done. Yeah. Wait, before I say that, any more comments, or there's a lot of things? Kaffir lime. Yes, kaffir lime is what I was trying to say. Kaffir lime or like lemongrass, those things I think would be really nice. Thank you everyone for kaffir. Do nigoris age differently than more filtered? Yes. Nigoris do not age very well. They're meant to be seasonal and like fresh and juicy usually. There are some like earthier nigoris out there, but because there's like rice solids, they're going to change, and the color of the rice will also be like more gray or more brownish, and don't drink those because they're probably not very tasty. Yeah, Arabashiri 196 is better than the 193 and 95 I tried. Yeah, this one is one that the brewery really wanted us to take, so it's very fresh and juicy. Yeah.
Did you do like a vertical of these?
sounds like Greg did. Yeah, I did not, but Greg did. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, but before COVID, on lockdown, I would go to the brewery and they would let me taste through like the 3 arabashis they have right now, and then you can see what you like. Stu, for example, has their arabashiri, I think, kegged, and then he gets them to add less water and maybe like you can you can do some fun things. He doesn't have any anymore, but
level, like he's just like old form of sake sommelier, whatever he wants to label himself.
Yeah, he's doing all sorts of things. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways,
evolved. You gotta ask for weird things to happen.
Yeah, you gotta be like fearless and ask,
Goodness, this is delicious.
So your sake rice tasting is March. What is it? March 9th, right? So 4 sakes, 4 different rice varieties.
Yeah, Sam, who's one of our students who also works at Peter Pan. She's going to do it with me because she is amazing, and I really want to support my team.
Yeah.
We're going to taste 4 sakes. Well, one of these is going to be. I want this, so
yeah.
We'll see. We'll Amachi, what Taribane, which is the same thing I know, but like I love Amachi.
It's different, yeah.
The thing, and then the Yamanishiki and the Miyamanishiki.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good lineup. Yeah.
That'll be interesting. And I'm not. This isn't me trying. For people who want to know, this isn't me trying to be like I'm better than teaching sake than Mariko. No. This is me going, okay, I've invested
very possible.
all my energy and mental capacity in February to learning about sake. Now it's time to test my mettle and tell people, get people. Also, I have now 10 sakes in my restaurant, and if I don't tell my regulars, teach them about what sake is, no one's ever going to buy it. So, I need to get people interested in sake, especially my 4 shoppers who come to Peter Pan. They don't really come for sake, they come for wine. So I'm excited to hunt them off to something else. So it's great. Oh my God, Christopher. Hey,
yeah, Christopher is saying, the Living Vines bring into. Oh, I didn't know it was going to destination. So yeah, there's some really I showed a couple of photos of Terra Honke. The Katori is not that wasn't the photo, but the 90% polish. Some pretty cool sake is coming in.
Helpman has a sake. You should put that up on the chat.
Yeah, Soto sake, SOTO. Right, that's from I think it's produced in a Niigata brewery, but it's really great bottle and like that classic Niigata clean, light Tande Karafuchi style. Yeah. Batches. Yeah, if you want to do a vertical of Izumi sakes, all these batch numbers are available apparently in Ontario in case anyone's interested in doing a vertical. Yeah.
That's really fun.
So cool.
Maybe when things open up, I'll do one. Maybe get Stu to come to the shop and I don't know, whatever he does, whatever.
Yeah, be Stu.
I feel like he's going to be my new best friend.
Me too. And then just a little plug for myself. I'm doing. It's a sake subscription. It's seasonal. I'm not sure if I explained that very well on my Instagram, but you get 2 bottles of sake that you have to trust me that they'll be delicious, and I'll include some sake snacks and write up on each. And so if you go to Hakko Gakko, you'll see the details.
Do it. I already did it. I did it last night. It was great. I'm really excited. Also, it's a good chance for me to go to regular. But I don't have to drop off sakes every week. I'm
thank you.
Used to go there. So
grab an espresso on the way out.
Delicious.
Yeah.
So, do it, everyone. If you don't, I don't know.
So the 2 bottles will be for the March or a spring subscription, and then I'm going to do a summer, fall, and winter. Yeah.
Do you have like, is it unlimited? Like, is it
I only
unlimited?
have, I'm going to do 12 sets because 12 bottles in a case. So I'm going to do 12 sets. So yeah, first come, first serve. So if there's hundreds of people, then I'll have to think about my plan.
I mean,
It's possible.
Chris is on the chat. So like, the minute she posts it, then there will be literally thousands of people.
That is very true. Yeah. So if you could all reach out to
So
people who are looking for this.
the bus, but you are fancy
The influencer.
beverage influencer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want
Because
that
there's
bag.
so many
I'm
wine
gonna get
ones.
that bag because I really.
It's actually a rice bag. So I ordered these bags that are specifically for selling rice in Japan, and it's like a roll top bag for so you can put your sake, your rice in there after you're done with the sakes.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did have. I remember when we first started this conversation, we had this, this Picari sweat kind of like we were like, oh, we're going to give everyone Picari sweat, and it's going to be great, and it all just literally evaporated.
Yeah. Pocari sweat should be in there because it's also the like next day cure. Yeah. Thanks, Krista. She says, take my money. Yay. I will take your money. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Are there, I'm not sure if there's
for all your time and effort and like your flag that you created, that got created. It's wonderful. I'm sad I didn't get to see March calendar kind of come through.
Oh, true. Yeah.
But we'll see it. Well, maybe we'll see it again.
Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because after this, we want to do, you do your rice one, and then maybe we can do some other more like masterclass kind of, all much you
I will
write.
do whatever you want me to do. I will be there to help.
Okay. Really? Oh, that's Pandora's box. Okay. So yeah, if anyone has any ideas or things you want to explore even more, like I'd love to do like a vintage sake only one, it'd be great if it was also like all the same sake even. Yeah.
And we're doing a wine coach together, which is my series, series I do.
Yes.
With Sachin Montrachet, Premier Cru Burgundy and sake, which sounds very nerdy, but like if you're in my world, that's kind of like really cool. So and Sheila.
So singular.
Yeah, Sheila Flattery from Helplan's joining us. It'll be us three, and I will say nothing because having you two in the same room is like there's no two greater people I know about Burgundy / sake, and I'm really excited to sort of see you guys. And that's going to be like 20 tickets. So you're hearing it first. It'll probably go on sale on like Friday or something. But like,
some pretty
like Burgundy and you like sake,
famous
like Mariko.
Burgundies, pretty famous Burgundies and sake.
Yeah, Ramune. Yeah, PYCM, some delicious. I don't know what sake you're pouring. I mean, I don't care.
I'm still trying to think about what I want to show because it has to be extra special. Yeah, like single plot, one plot of rice. That sort of level would be nice.
Anyway, we're rambling, but
I
guess. Thanks everyone for coming. Like this was, obviously there were hiccups, but I really appreciate everyone's patience and everyone was super lovely. Like this was a fun project for me, and like looking back, my partner Pete was reminding me, who's also here in the chat. He participating, but he was like, all you wanted to do was learn about sake, and like in 1 month, like I went from having like 0 sake in my restaurant to not only having like 8 sakes in my wine shop, but like hosting my own sake wine coach, which is like basic, but like I don't know. I hope everyone else had the same kind of like experience and like learned and feel more comfortable. It's I told Krista and I told Mariko, like, I wanted 2021 for us to sell more sake and get people to drink more sake because it's so delicious and like, why not? So I hope this has gone on the way and like, get people, order more sake at restaurants when you can. And buy more sake and share it with people. Like who who cares what you think they will think? Just like do it and just see what they think, because I love it. It's
We
delicious.
tasted 15 sakes actually in 1 month, so it's pretty big. Dent. So you can say you've had 15 sakes that you know now, and you can talk about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're all like accessible. Like they're not. I mean, within a time of year in terms of like when they come in, but like it's not. It's not
Yeah.
hard.
I didn't have to kill anyone or pull strings too much to get these sakes. So yeah.
Which isn't like a read on like how they're not common, but at the same time they're super special. But
Oh yeah.
I think they're all accessible. Like the beauty of 2021 and also like the city is that the demand for these kind of interesting premium sakes can be small right now. So like buy them. Go to Stew, go to Bathurst Local, go to Scarborough and Markham, and just like pack them all up while you can, because why not?
Yeah. So yeah, go support the restaurants and bottle shops, please, in the neighborhood and where you are, and the LCBO too. Yeah. So hopefully you will drink more sakes and have more questions, and you're more confused because sake, there's so much to learn.
Yeah, and if you want to do if you want Mariko to do a masterclass, send her an email. Don't send me anything because I have no influence whatsoever. But send Mariko.
Yeah. Tell me what you want. Yeah.
What I learn about next, because as much as
Make it happen.
it was a fun project, but it's a cool opportunity to like teach about more sake education that's based on like really what you want, not what like WSET like white English people decide people should learn about sake or whatever. That's just
Greg
me.
is saying more info on the Ramonit PYCM sake party. I'm sure you'll see that coming up in the next couple of days, right?
Instagram.
20 tickets only. Follow Nick on Instagram.
I will absolutely release some of the tickets, and then I will save some of the tickets. So when you all come crying to me saying I missed out, I'll be like, absolutely, I have one ticket for you.
Yeah. At a premium.
Most of my friends are Soms, and most of them are lazy and don't do anything, and they think it'll just still be available to them. Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
You all know who you are. But yes, I will hold a little back. So I will let you know on my Instagram, Peter Pantry Instagram. But it's going to be fun. I'm extremely nervous, but I think it's going to be a really interesting experiment on like Chardonnay, like white Burgundy and sake. I think it's
yeah.
I don't know
it's
what's
one for the books for sure. Yeah.
But like I think like I said to you a few days ago, like there's sake. A lot of sake makers and brewers have like taken inspiration from Burgundy, and it's interesting to see where that comes from. But also, like Burgundy winemakers are like looking to Japan for like terroir, for looking for like, they're also looking at Japan to sort of see how that can influence evolve their winemaking. So, it's not as random as, if you think it's random, it's
very connected. There's a story and a reason, rhyme and reason. Yeah, I will also send out. So again, I'll send out the list of sakes that we tasted with who they're from, and like from if they're available at the LCBO, for the most part, they would be very good condition. And then otherwise, I would go directly to the agent. Yeah. So drink more sake, and let me know if you have any suggestions or questions, and see everyone very soon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Mariko.
Nick. Thank you for making it happen. And
no.
we'll see everyone soon.
It's just like a clown in the corner. This is wonderful. Have a early night. Drink lots of cutlery sweat, and
and water. And
so bye everyone. Thank you very
much.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Thank you.